Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our introductory first-time homebuyer workshop. My name is Dale Tomei. I'm the education coordinator for the Hawaii HomeOwnership Center. And we like to call this workshop, There is No Place Like Home. So we start off with a question. So why do you want to become a homeowner? And it's a rhetorical question because there could be many reasons why you would like to be a homeowner. It could be, I'm tired of renting, or maybe you're tired of moving every time the lease expires. Or maybe you want to start a solid foundation financially so you can maybe in the future upgrade to a larger property. Or maybe you want to set up a solid financial foundation to help your kids one day. So hopefully after today's workshop, we'll answer some of these questions. So tonight I'm going to talk about home ownership preparation. We'll talk about the Hawaii HomeOwnership Center, and I'll give you a brief background about the center. We'll talk about common barriers to home ownership that many families face living in Hawaii. We'll talk about the home buying process, as well as covering some factors that you may want to consider if you're currently renting and thinking about purchasing a home. We'll talk about the first steps, and we'll watch a short video testimony from 3 families that have actually gone through the center's education and counseling, and they'll talk a little bit about their first purchase as well. So preparation, homebuyer education, and coaching. Now, I may interchange the words coaching and counseling. The industry for homebuyer education and financial coaching has been moving to refer to counseling as coaching, because counseling kind of has a negative connotation, right? I got to talk to my counselor versus I need to speak to my financial coach. So if I interchange the two, they mean the same thing. But the Hawaii HomeOwnership Center focuses on the learning process of homebuyer education and becoming a homeowner. So we provide a homebuyer education course that basically covers money management, understanding credit as it applies towards mortgage qualification, learning about mortgages, learning about real estate and the purchase contract, learning about the different types of insurances associated with a home purchase. And it's a 9-hour course. And essentially, we're going to be taking you through the home buying process, and you're going to watch or follow a fictional family as they go through the buying process. And the whole idea is when you're ready to do this for real for yourselves, you're going to be ready. Okay? You're going to be, I remember talking about those types of mortgages. Or I remember, the lender is going to be looking at this when I apply for the mortgage. Because to be honest, my first purchase, I didn't take any classes. My first purchase, it really boiled down to, just tell me where to sign. Because I was so overwhelmed with all of the information that was being presented to me from my lender, my real estate agent, my escrow officer. And I was trying to read everything, but it was so overwhelming that it really boiled down to, just tell me where to sign. And if there wasn't those Post-its with the arrows pointing to where I needed to sign, even then would be overwhelming. So the education, had it been around when I first purchased, I would have benefited so much by going through the classes and getting a better understanding. I would have asked better questions while I went through the process as well. Now we focus and put a heavy foundation on understanding money management, because really buying a house is not just the purchase itself. That's 50% of the challenge. The other half, the more important than 50%, I think, is being able to keep what I purchased. So understanding the difference between affordability versus qualification. So what is affordability? We all have an amount that we feel comfortable spending each month for housing, whether it's for rent or whether it's for a housing payment, right? We have an amount that we would feel comfortable paying each month. Qualification, on the other hand, is I can talk to a lender and they're going to look at all of my financials and they'll say, okay, based on your income and your debt, this is how much you qualify for. And by the way, this is the monthly payment for that. Now, what I feel comfortable spending each month might be totally different than what the lender says I can qualify for. And I can guarantee if you go shopping based on what the lender says you can qualify for, I can guarantee more expensive will look better than less expensive. And it becomes extremely easy to convince ourselves that I can survive pretty long eating popcorn and potato chips, and I'll do whatever it takes for a little while. But the key to home ownership is you buy what you can afford and you sustain it. Because if you're thinking, I'm going to buy now and sell next year at a profit, you need a crystal ball. We don't know what home prices will be next year. But if you can sustain home ownership, well, let me ask you guys, are we ever going to see home prices from 10 years ago? Probably not. Are we ever going to see home prices from 20 years ago? I'm pretty sure we're not going to see that. Are we ever going to see home prices from 50 years ago? I guarantee we will not see that. But we all know, right? Real estate prices go up and down, but in Hawaii, they go up and down in an upward fashion. So even if home prices didn't go up by next year, if I can afford the monthly payment, nobody is forcing me to sell, right? So I continue making the monthly mortgage payment. And especially with properties in Hawaii, sooner or later, the prices will rebound. And then I sell and upgrade to that bigger property or better location when it makes sense for me to do so, not because I cannot afford the monthly payment. So the key to home ownership for average families making average incomes is you buy what you can afford, knowing full well this might not be the dream house, but at least I'm not paying somebody else's mortgage. I can start building equity for myself, and when there's some market appreciation helping, all of that free equity can help me to that upgrade purchase. Now, the reality of buying a house, especially in Hawaii, is we're going to have to borrow money. So qualifying for the mortgage is a very critical step in the home buying process. And credit plays an important role in being able to qualify. And that's why we spend 2 hours and 15 minutes in our homebuyer education class focused only on credit as it applies towards mortgage qualification. Now, a separate part of the homeownership education is the coaching. Now, the coaching aspect is the application of what we talk about in class, but it will be specifically working with families in private confidential meetings. In those meetings, the coaches will actually go over resources that are available, that are currently funded, that you may qualify for. As a first-time homebuyer, there are programs that can add assistance. Now, most of these programs do have income qualifications, or another way of saying that, income restriction levels, meaning there's a certain amount based on your household size that you would have to make under a certain amount. Now, the misconception with a lot of these programs is, oh, you got to be low income to qualify for those programs. Not necessarily. Some programs, in fact, multiple programs, they have different income restriction levels. Some might be 80% and below the area median income guidelines. Some might go all the way up to 140% of the area median income guideline. So again, vastly different as far as what those restriction levels. Now, some assistance programs may have requirements in themselves, such as a minimum down payment from the borrower, maybe a minimum qualifying credit score from the borrowers. And some programs, there might even be restrictions, meaning maybe if I sell the property before a certain amount of years, there's a penalty where I might have to pay some of the assistance back. So understanding which programs exist, what are the requirements, what are the qualifications, are there any restrictions, that's shared with the individual families in these private confidential meetings. And then you tell us, what are your plans for home ownership? And then which programs align with your plans for the first purchase? Because if your plan is, I'm just going to buy this and then I'm going to sell it in 7 years, then maybe some of the programs may not make sense because there might be some restrictions that you got to pay back. So it's understanding what programs are available and which ones make sense. Because I can go back to my own experience. Again, that first time I purchased, nobody told me that there were programs that existed. I didn't know that there were programs existed. So I never applied. And most times when you apply, you will not be applying yourself. It's typically the lender that will help you to apply for these programs. But sometimes if you don't say anything, they don't say anything because that's more work for them. So be proactive. Anytime you talk to a lender, you just tell them, I'm a first-time homebuyer. What can you offer me? So once we've prepared ourselves, because really that's what we have control over, right? Our own finances. Once we've prepared ourselves, the first visit should be with a lender. Now, I know most of you watch HGTV, and the first thing we want to do is go find a real estate agent and start looking at houses. That's almost like going to Costco, filling up the cart, and trying to figure out at the cashier, can I pay for it? Right? So the better way to do it would be, okay, I'm going to only spend this amount, and then I fill the cart under that amount. So the first visit really should be with a lender. Pre-qualification, pre-approval, what's the difference? In its raw sense, a pre-qualification could simply mean I call a lender up, I say, this is how much money I make, this is how much debt I have, my credit score is blah, blah, blah. And everything that I said was true, the lender would say, okay, based on today's interest rate, you qualify for X loan amount with a Y monthly payment. Now, that type of pre-qualification is worth the air that it's written on. Because if I wanted to start looking at houses and I want to make an offer, sure, the real estate agent that is taking me to look at houses can write up an offer with the contract, but that contract must be accompanied by a pre-qualification letter. And no lender is going to provide a pre-qualification letter based on verbal information. They want us to be on the right-hand side where it says pre-approval. Now, a pre-approval is still a pre-qualification, but it's a pre-qualification based on documented facts. So the lender has seen my pay stubs, my tax returns, my bank and asset account statements. They have seen a credit report. Now, a pre-approval pre-qualification, that lender has run my information through an underwriting system, and that underwriting system has come back and said, if everything stays the same as documented, this borrower should be good for X loan amount with a Y monthly payment. That's the type of pre-qualification we want to get prior to looking at houses. Now, that initial pre-qualification with the lender, they're basically going to say, this is the max that you can qualify for. Again, I might not be comfortable with that max monthly payment. So if I qualified for $600,000 with a $4,000 monthly payment, I can tell you right now, I'm not comfortable paying $4,000 each month for housing. I might say, okay, I know that's what I can qualify for, but really I feel comfortable paying $2,900 per month. And they can work the numbers backwards and say, okay, based on that $2,900 monthly payment, this is what it translates to a loan amount, add your down payment, and that's the price that you should be shopping in. So let's say we start looking at houses. And let's say that price that we should shop at is around $400,000. So we find a property, and let's say this one is listed at $380,000, and my real estate agent says, you know what, that's a fair price. So let's make an offer at $380,000. Now I plan to put $20,000 down payment. So I go to that lender that did that pre-qualification, and I say, okay, we found a property, and we're going to make an offer at $380,000. I'm going to put $20,000 down payment. So I need a pre-qualification letter that says I've been pre-qualified for a $360,000 loan. So in other words, when I present that offer, my pre-qualification only shows what I need to show. Remember, the max is $600,000. I do not want the seller to know I can qualify for $600,000. Because if they know I can qualify for more, what do you think they're going to do when they receive my offer? They're going to counter, right? Let's try and get $10,000 more from Dale. So you only show what you need to show. So let's say that offer doesn't get accepted. They accept somebody else's offer. So we go back shopping again. Let's say we find another property. This time, I really like this property. We're going to make an offer at $400,000. Now, I still plan on putting $20,000 down payment. So again, I go back to that lender that provided that pre-qualification letter, and I'm going to say, we're going to make an offer at $400,000. I'm going to put $20,000 down. I need a pre-qualification letter that says I've been pre-qualified for a $380,000 loan. So again, I only show what I need to show. This time, let's say the offer gets accepted. Once the offer is accepted, I go back to the lender that provided me that pre-qualification letter, and I'm going to formally apply for the mortgage. So notice, you don't formally apply for the mortgage until you identify the property and you get an acceptance of your offer. Because that pre-qualification is based on a hypothetical. The lender is basically saying, okay, if everything stays the same for you financially, you should be good for X loan amount with a Y monthly payment. Now go find a property that can also qualify for the mortgage. So not only does the borrower need to qualify, but the property also needs to qualify for the mortgage. So why would the property need to qualify for the mortgage? Well, look at it from the lender's perspective. If they lend me money to buy a property, what would be their worst case scenario after I buy the property? That I stop paying, right? So in the worst case scenario, I stop paying, what would be their recourse? Very similar to an auto loan, right? If you don't make your monthly auto loan payments, what happens? They repossess the collateral. Same thing happens with a home purchase, except it's called a foreclosure. Now, the bank is not in the business of collecting houses, right? They want to lend money, charge interest. That would be the guarantee for them. So in the unfortunate situation, they have to foreclose on a property. They want to sell that property and get their money back, and they want to do it quickly. So that's why they scrutinize the property. They want a property that if they have to take it back, they can sell it quickly and then get their money back, lend it to somebody else, and charge interest. So what would disqualify a home from a mortgage? Now, if we're talking a single-family home, unpermitted structure, right? So I make an offer at $800,000 for a 5-bedroom, 3-bath home. The lender's not going to take my word for it that just because I offered $500,000 that it's worth $500,000, and that's why they require the appraisal. So the appraiser is done by a licensed appraiser, and he's going to give his expert opinion based on market sales, right, in the last 6 months, square footage, condition, number of bedrooms, number of baths. He's going to give his expert opinion on what the value of that property is. He's also going to take a look at county records based on what is permitted. Now, I went to look at the property. It's a 5-bedroom, 3-bath, right? Listed at $800,000, so I made that offer at $800,000. But let's say when that appraiser comes to look at the property, he pulls county records and it shows it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and all those additions were unpermitted. The appraiser cannot give value for what's not permitted. So if he comes back with an appraisal of $600,000, remember the offer was at $8,000. Who needs to come up with that difference of $200,000? I do, because a lender is not going to lend more than that appraised value. So that could be a reason why, okay, I offered $800,000, the lender's only going to lend $600,000. I cannot close on my loan. I don't have enough down payment. So that could disqualify the home from qualifying for the mortgage. Now, what if I'm buying a condo? Well, what if the condo is going through some litigation, right? Maybe somebody got hurt or injured on the property and they're suing the association. Now, what if the association loses and they have to settle and pay $2 million out of court? That $2 million will need to be recouped. How do you think the association is going to recoup that? Right? Raising the maintenance fees and potentially a special assessment where each owner needs to cough out $15,000 each. right? The lender does not want me to be in that position if I was to buy a property. So they're basically saying, okay, you qualify, but if that's the property that you want to buy, we're not lending on that. You have to find something else. Or maybe what if an association has one owner that owns more than 20% of all the units? Well, that means if we have to vote on anything as an association, pretty much whatever that one owner votes on will probably pass. So there's unfair advantage. So there's many reasons why the borrower would qualify, but the property does not qualify. So again, you only formally apply for the mortgage. Once you identify the property, you make an offer and you get an acceptance. Once your offer is accepted, you have now opened up escrow. Now, there are two types of escrow. There's the neutral third party, which is called the escrow company. Think of them as the referee between the buyer and the seller. They hold the original contract, so nobody can change anything. And when you wrote up that contract, you're basically saying as a buyer, hey, Mr. Seller, I'm interested in buying your property. And if you accept my offer, I'll have all of these timelines to do my due diligence, right? I have an opportunity to look at the seller's disclosure statement. I have an opportunity to have a home inspection done. The lender has some due diligence, right? They need to make sure that I can receive final loan approval. So that escrow period typically takes about 45 to 60 days from offer acceptance all the way to we close. The escrow company, again, neutral third party, they actually work for both parties. They're making sure both parties, buyer and seller, is doing what they need to do based on those timelines. Now, once all of the timelines are met and all the contingencies are met, we will schedule our loan signing. Notice I said loan signing and not loan closing. If this is the only thing that you remember from tonight's workshop, the day that you sign your loan documents, keep everything the same. Now, it's going to feel like you're done because everybody's going to congratulate you. You're not done. All you did was sign. Very next day, the lender is going to verify. Is Dale still working? Is his credit still the same? So they're going to repull my credit because they want to make sure I didn't go crazy and go buy a Mercedes or something, right? They want to make sure I can still qualify and my credit is still the same. Now, once everything is verified, then they will fund escrow. So if I was borrowing $480,000, that's when they throw the $480,000 into the pot, which is escrow again, the neutral third party. Then it moves to the Bureau of Conveyance to record. So typically about 3 business days following your loan signing. Once it records with the Bureau of Conveyance, that's when my real estate agent meets the seller's agent to pick up the keys and bring them to me. Once I got keys in hands, congratulations, you are now the legal owner of the property. Now, continuing services. So the Hawaii HomeOwnership Center, most of our families are first-time homebuyers. I would say about 95% are first-time homebuyers. 5% already own properties and they still wanted to take the education. But most of our families, first-time homebuyers, typically will buy a condo. And that is not the end-all goal for them, right? They aspire probably for a single-family house. So that first purchase, more than likely, will not be the dream house. It's a stepping stone property to help them get there. And maybe after some market appreciation, they sell and they upgrade. So continuing services, the center's lifetime membership. We've had members that purchased 3 times. I'm not going to lie to you. The first purchase was the biggest challenge, right? That's the one that they came out with most of the money out of their pocket, and they let the properties appreciate in value. And each time their down payment was getting larger and larger when they upgraded. So that's why the lifetime membership. So what is the Hawaii HomeOwnership Center? We are a nonprofit organization affiliated with NeighborWorks America, which is a national organization chartered by Congress. We're one of many across the country that offers the NeighborWorks curriculum. Last count, I think it was like 250 organizations across the country. Now, NeighborWorks America has been around since 1978. In Hawaii, though, the Hawaii HomeOwnership Center has been since October of 2003. I don't know why it took so long to come to Hawaii. I would have benefited had it been here previously. Now, since the inception, we have a little over 6,000 families statewide. I would say about half of them on Oahu. And just over 4,000 have actually completed the homebuyer education, worked with their financial coaches, and received their homebuyer education certificate. Last stats that we took, about 67% of those graduates have become first-time homebuyers. So even though Hawaii prices, crazy, right? Even though Hawaii prices are high, homeownership still can be a goal that you can realize. When you hear median home prices, just understand what that means. Half of the properties sold below that number, half of the properties sold above that number. And again, I don't know very many first-time home buyers that weren't born rich buying that median price range. The key is you buy what you can afford, sustain it, and it leads to future opportunities. Now, currently we have 10 on our staff. We all believe everyone has the right to know how to purchase a home, but more importantly, you should be aware of options and choices. You may qualify for down payment assistance, government grants, first-time homebuyer programs, matching funds programs. For every dollar that you save up to a certain amount, the program matches with grant funds. And again, utilizing these different programs depending on the type of purchase and depending on what your plans are, remember some of them have restrictions, we can help you to connect with these resources to fulfill whatever your financial goal is for home ownership. So how do we help you to become a homeowner? First of all, we'll connect you with knowledge to the homebuyer education classes, that 9-hour course that will take you through the home buying process, and you'll understand each step along the way. Working with your financial coach, they'll help you to explore your different options and choices. Again, you may qualify for down payment assistance, closing cost assistance, government grants, but it's understanding which ones make sense. And depending on the type of purchase, you might be able to use more than one program. We provide you with tools. The first two classes, the money management course and the understanding credit course, both combined form the foundation of financial literacy. And some of the techniques that we discuss in these two classes will also apply towards other financial goals and not just home ownership. We also provide ongoing support with the lifetime membership. Again, most of our families, that first purchase will not be the end-all purchase, and they come back. Maybe they want to discuss, does it make sense to refinance? Or maybe they've lived in the property for 8 years and okay, let's strategize on how can we maximize our sale for the upgrade purchase. They contact the center, work with their coach again. So what are the barriers to home ownership that people face? Now, there was a study done prior to the center opening in 2003, and it looked for what are these barriers. And some of the barriers were real obvious, some of them not so obvious. The center focuses on the top 5 barriers. First, income versus housing costs. We all know how expensive it is to live in Hawaii, and unfortunately, our incomes don't tend to match up with those on the mainland. So one of the primary objectives of the center is to search out resources in the form of down payment assistance, grants, first-time homebuyer programs, anything to help bridge the gap towards affordability. The next is too much debt. The reality of buying a house, again, is we're going to need to borrow money. So qualifying for the mortgage, very critical in being able to buy a home. You might have a good paying job, money saved up, but if your debt to income ratios are too high, that might derail your efforts. And that's why working with a financial coach will help you. Lack of down payment. Now, it might have been once upon a time when our parents bought their homes or grandparents bought their homes, they were required to come in with 20% down payment. Now, if we're looking at a $500,000 property, how many of us are going to have $100,000 just for the down payment? Just understand that there are programs that require less than 20%. Some may require 10%, some 5%, some 3.5%, some 3%. Some programs allow you to borrow 100% financing, meaning no down payment. But again, it's understanding which program not only allows me to purchase, but allows me to keep what I purchase. So again, it's understanding not just a particular program, but how does it impact me in the future as well? Lack of information on home ownership. And if you're like many of us, where maybe your parents rented or grandparents rented, some of the benefits of home ownership and some of the biggest benefits of home ownership isn't conveyed to us. And one of the biggest is the building of wealth, building of equity. Equity is the value of what I own versus what I owe. Now, back in 2003, when they did this study, they compared average homeowners' equity to those that rented. And it was found in Hawaii, back in 2003, average homeowners that owned their homes had on average 12 to 13 times more equity than those that rented. 2/3 of that equity was in the property that they owned. This study was redid mid-2006. Now, if you go back in time looking at the real estate cycle, what was happening mid-2006? Homes were skyrocketing. Now, towards the end of 2007, 2008, we had the mortgage crisis. But for the most part, home prices in Hawaii held. Some places on the mainland, we were hearing, right, they were selling half price of what the homeowner actually bought it at. But for the most part in Hawaii, home prices held. But in 2006, home prices were skyrocketing. When they did the study in 2006, the disparity of equity of homeowners compared to those that rented was 42 times more for homeowners. And it wasn't because they were saving money, it was because their properties were appreciating in value. So again, the key to home ownership, you buy what you can afford and you sustain it. And lastly, a feeling of hopelessness. Now, home prices in Hawaii is crazy, right? In fact, home prices have actually come down a little, around $1 million for a median home price, single family home. That's still crazy expensive. Remember when $500,000 was a lot of money? Well, guess what? It's still a lot of money. The key is you buy what you can afford and you sustain it, knowing full well this is probably not the dream house, again, but at least I'm not paying somebody else's mortgage. I can build equity for myself with my monthly payments, and when market appreciation occurs, all of that free equity helps me with an opportunity down the road where I sell and I upgrade. The current market situation, home prices versus rent. This solid blue line, this is median prices for condos from about 1980 to present. This solid orange line, this is the median home prices for single family homes. Kind of makes sense, right? The prices kind of follow the same curve, a little higher, right, than condos. The gray line, this gray staggered line, this is a 1-bedroom rent. The cost of a 1-bedroom to rent, right? Notice kind of looks similar. This is a 2-bedroom average rent during that same time frame. So you might hear prices, some people say, oh, it's too expensive to buy. I couldn't just continue renting. Well, what do rents do when home prices go up? They go up as well, right? So there is kind of a correlation. As home values go up, so do rents. Current market situation with regards to interest rates. So this is again from about 1970 all the way to present. if you bought in the 80s, look how high the interest rate was. Double digit. Yeah, so when we're hearing people say that, oh, 6%, that's so high, historically, that's actually a great interest rate. Now, we were spoiled here, right? This is 4%. We were spoiled maybe the last 5 years, maybe even 7 years. We were really spoiled where the interest rates were really, really low and they went up pretty high. But this year, interest rates have actually come down a little. And the Federal Reserve has also mentioned that they kind of anticipate lowering it 3 times this year. So again, that's good news for us. We don't know how low they're going to lower it, and it might not be, the record lows that we experience. You might not see 2.5%, 2.75%, even 3% might be unheard of. But something in the fives, that would be, I don't think that's unrealistic. So again, when you look at it from a historical standpoint, the interest rates are still low, right? 6%, look how 6% looks historically. That's still a good interest rate. And if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to wait till the interest rates go back to 3%, how many years is that going to take? And over that time, what do you think the home price is going to have? Home price is going to change. So the key is you buy when you can, and you buy something that you can afford. There are programs that can help. So there are mortgage credit certificate programs that can help with tax credit. There's down payment and closing cost assistance loan programs. There's county-specific programs. Right now, there's a Honolulu and County, Kauai County programs that can help with down payment assistance and gap loans. And again, part of the center services is educating the consumer of which programs exist. And actually, at the end of this workshop, we do have a assistance programs review that I'm actually going to be doing next month. So I'll have the QR code if anyone is interested. So it all starts with good money management, right? And that's why we place a heavy foundation on understanding and devising realistic financial goals for ourselves and budgeting to reach those goals, as well as the importance of building saving reserve levels, emergency funds. Because even if you purchase your home, we want you to have some reserves because we don't want one emergency and all of a sudden you cannot make that monthly payment. It's about having control of our money and not having our money control us. And when we have control of our money, it leads to improved credit because there's no reason to be paying bills late. Early preparation, right? A lot of people wait for good luck to happen. They get their name selected in a lottery and all of a sudden they're scrambling to try and save up down payment or pay down debt or improve their credit. Even if you're not ready right now, there's a lot of things that you can start working on to put you on the path to being able to qualify for a mortgage. Get yourself ready. Because remember, that's what we have control over, our own finances. We, instead of waiting for good luck, we start creating our own opportunities and we can take advantage of those opportunities. So I mentioned down payment assistance, grants, first-time homebuyer programs. Those programs are not perpetually funded. They run out of funds. And then you got to wait till they get funded again. So if you can get yourself financially prepared, once those funds are available, you're ready to apply. And you're making homeownership happen and not waiting for good luck. We like to call this the Hawaii HomeOwnership Center Flowchart to Success. So tonight we're all at this introductory first-time homebuyer workshop. Should you choose to continue, fill out an intake form, register for the homebuyer education classes, and it's split up into 5 modules that we will cover in 4 evening classes. So all of our classes are held via Zoom, just like what you're attending this evening. And we split them up in 5 modules over a 4-night period. So each night it's going to be covering 2 hours and 15 minutes approximately you would cover money management on one night, understanding credit on another evening, mortgages on another evening, and then on the last evening, you would cover real estate and insurances associated with the home purchase. This is 9 hours total. We've tried doing 9-hour classes. People are falling asleep. So again, we break them up so you can digest that information. The one-on-one coaching, this is the follow-up to the homebuyer education. But this is where we apply what we discussed in class, but it'll be specific to your financial situation in private confidential meetings with a financial coach. We want to get you down here where it says you are mortgage ready. So at this point, you've already attended the classes, you've already worked on your finances, you've already met with your counselors and learned about the currently funded assistance programs, how to apply for them, how they work, which ones make sense. This is where we want you to start shopping, right? For your lender. So you visit lenders, get pre-qualified, pre-approved, then you're going to shop for your home, right? With your real estate agent. Remember, focusing on affordability versus qualification. You're going to make an offer, get an acceptance, and you're going to formally apply for the mortgage. Once you formally apply for the mortgage, remember, you've opened up escrow. If you have any questions during the escrow period, you can always contact your financial coach. After that 45 to 60 days typically of escrow period, you become a homeowner, you get handed your keys. Now, real simple on paper. In real life, it can be a lot more challenging. And that's why the lifetime membership. Our role is not to tell you when you should buy, what you should buy, where you should buy. That's you. Our role is, what are you trying to accomplish? Where are we now? How do we get there? And hopefully along the way, we can add some assistance. So that's why, whether it takes 6 months, 6 years, 10 years, we actually had some families that they took 10 years. And it wasn't because they weren't trying. Something happens, right? Life happens. There was a death in the family. Somebody gets laid off, or there was an illness. And all of a sudden, home ownership is not the priority. They deal with whatever the issue, they come back. Okay, we're ready to progress towards home ownership again. They work with their financial coach. And that's why the lifetime membership. Now, even after you become a homeowner, we still offer assistance. Whether it's post-purchase services, right? Is it a good time to refinance? You can talk to your financial coach. We also have workshops, anything to do with home ownership. We've had speakers come in and talk about living wills and trusts. What happens to my heirs if something was to happen to me? If I don't have a will, or I don't have a trust, or let's say I do have a trust. We've had speakers come in and talk about flooring, pros and cons, cost differences. We've even had workshops where you actually come in, it's a hands-on workshop, and you learn about the components in your toilet tank, or how to replace a screen on your sliding door, or changing the lock and the deadbolt. So we have models that you can actually work on before you actually work on the real thing. And that's all part of your lifetime membership. So now I'd like to talk about some factors that you may want to consider if you're currently renting and thinking about home ownership. And those factors are equity, costs, taxes, control, and stability. The first one is equity. And we kind of talked about equity. If you're renting, you're helping your landlord to build equity. As a homeowner, every month's payment gets you closer and closer to becoming 100% owner of the property. And when there's market appreciation, all of that free equity is yours. Cost. And this is based on a stigma that a lot of people have, right? If I become a homeowner, there are going to be a lot more costs involved versus if I rent. But remember those graphs that we looked at, right? As home property values go up, so do rents. And what you might be paying in a mortgage compared to rent might not be as different as you might think. Next is taxes. As a renter, you basically got no tax breaks. As a homeowner, you may be able to save a lot of money in federal and state taxes. because all of that mortgage interest is tax deductible. Property taxes, tax deductible. And currently, if you don't have 20% down payment and the lender requires mortgage insurance, that is currently also tax deductible. So when you add up all of these deductions, it's kind of like the IRS saying, congratulations, here's a tax break. Next is control. And this is a comparison of restrictions. As a renter, you're held to the restrictions that your landlord sets for you. As a homeowner, a lot less restrictive, especially if you like animals or you want to redecorate and paint your living room walls fluorescent green. As a homeowner, you have much more control. And lastly, and probably most overlooked out of all of these factors, is stability. If you're constantly worrying about, geez, the landlord wants to raise the rent and I don't know if I can afford that. But when you look around in the neighborhood, there's nothing else that's affordable. All of this stress can impact us in other areas. What if you have kids and you got to move to a different district? Not only do they lose their friends in the neighborhood, but potentially at school, right? So it can impact our relationships. What if moving adds a half an hour for you to get to work in the morning? That might affect my productivity when I get to work. Home ownership offers a lot more stability, right? A 30-year fixed mortgage, I know the bulk of my monthly housing payment will be fixed for the next 30 years. And in essence, when I own my property, we kind of start taking ownership of the communities that we live in. You care about how well the schools do in your district. You care about who's talking loud at 2 o'clock in the morning at the corner of the street. You care about how nice or how ugly, for that matter, your neighbor's yard looks because it impacts your property value. So when we start taking ownership of the communities that we live in, it actually benefits all of us. So steps to making it happen, you can become a member of the Hawaii HomeOwnership Center, take the homebuyer education classes and get educated. Again, this is what we have control over, preparing ourselves financially. Learn about assistance programs. What are the requirements? Are there any restrictions? How do I apply? Again, working with your financial coach. They will help you to explore your options and choices. Then once you're financially prepared, we're going to visit the lender, right? For pre-qualification, pre-approval. Again, focusing on affordability. And essentially, we're creating our own opportunities for home ownership. Now, at the Hawaii HomeOwnership Center, we are a member-based organization. That membership is lifetime. All course materials will be provided for you. The coaching is unlimited. So how many times you need to talk to your financial coach, that's up to you. We typically require 1 or 2 visits, and it's all via Zoom, so you don't actually have to come to the office. But if you prefer, we can accommodate that as well. We find that most people, they kind of understand what they need to work on and they work on it. And then once they get close, that's when they really start calling and communicating with their counselor, because now they've identified a property and now it's focused towards, okay, this is the loan program that I got to use for this purchase. These are the assistance programs that are currently funded. And again, how many it takes, it's unlimited. Now, some of the costs involved, we can order a tri-merge credit report, and our credit report that we pull, because we are a home ownership center, is a soft pull. But I recommend pull your own credit reports. You can go to, and I'll put it in the chat box, www.annualcreditreport.com. You can pull your own credit report for free. And because of COVID, so normally it's one of the 3 credit bureau reports annually. So you can pull Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion once per year. But because of COVID, annualcreditreport.com is allowing consumers to pull all 3 credit bureaus once per week. So, and I should mention that the free reports do not have credit scores. The only time you need a credit score is if you're applying for credit. For our purposes, We just want to make sure that your information is accurate so that if we need to help you to correct any errors, we can work on them now before you actually got to apply for a mortgage. Because if you apply for a mortgage, remember, you already got an accepted offer. The clock is already ticking. You might not be able to fix it in time. So let's fix it all before we start shopping for homes. I encourage you, pull your own credit reports. It's free. Most importantly, we need your time and your energy. We need you to attend the homebuyer education classes, work with your financial coach, do the homework assignments. We can show you how, but we cannot do it for you. So is the HomeOwnership Center for you? Why prepare early? Because good money management works in all economic climates, especially when times are difficult. We can help you to create your opportunities and options, help connect you with available resources, down payment assistance, government grants, closing cost assistance, matching funds programs, first-time homebuyer programs, mortgage credit certificate programs. And ultimately, you're taking control of your future and not waiting for good luck to happen. And lastly, homeownership benefits all of us. When we start taking ownership of the communities that we live in, it really does benefit all of us. So how effective is the Hawaii HomeOwnership Center? So as of August of last year, just over 6,000 members statewide, just over 4,000 families had already graduated through the homebuyer education and working with their counselors. Almost 3,000 families purchased. So again, house prices, very expensive, but it can be achieved. 67% of the graduate had purchased a home. 74% of new homeowners were 80% and below the area median income guideline. 81% of the graduates that completed the education and worked with their counselors purchased within 2 years. Now I'm going to show you a short video, and these families are going to talk about their experiences, going to the classes, working with their financial coach, and a little bit about their home.
Well, we needed to do something for Tyler and I. We needed to have a home of our own, and I couldn't see paying rent. You know, I thought that home ownership was a really good thing to do. And one day we were looking at the newspaper and we saw the ad for Plantation Apartments, and they were going to be building it. And so we came out here once, twice a month just to look at the model home, and we decided just give it a shot, see what happens, and the only thing they could tell us is no. And the classes were very informative. We learned a lot from that. We learned about budgeting and how to shop our loan and everything, and the counselors at the HomeOwnership Center. My counselor at the time was a really good counselor. If you're committed to it and you work really hard at it, you can be a happy homeowner just like we are.
We were renting an apartment in Makiki for a while, and it was getting to that point where we wanted to get our own place of our own, because our landlord we didn't want to deal with the landlord and paying rent. We realized that paying monthly rent was a lot, you know, every month pay a rent when we could be going to a home for mortgage. Even at that time, we weren't sure we were qualified or even if we could afford one, but just kept chugging through, and then eventually they told us, oh, we can. I was like, oh, we can afford one. Hawaii HomeOwnership helped us. You learn from the peers in the class, and the class is a great size. If we didn't go to, let's say we didn't take the class, what would have been different?
We wouldn't know where to start.
We wouldn't know where to start, and we wouldn't have been buying a house so soon. It would have probably been a couple more years, or we would have just brushed it off or something.
I was just so blown away. I'd never seen anything. I thought when you shop for a house, you just kind of drive around a certain neighborhood and you just go, I'll pick that one.
We started paying down our debt before we came here in July to Hawaii Home Ownership. But then before that, we're also trying to pay down our debt because we knew that that was something that was going to be talked about, and we were very scared, and we didn't want to be called out on it.
Well, I know I was really afraid to like face what I really had, because I knew I had it, but you kind of just like push it off to the side, and if I just pay a little bit and I don't look at it and I pay it, but that part of it really like was like the mirror in front of me, like, okay, no, this is what you have, and I'm honestly thankful for that, because if I didn't really take a look at it, then it'd probably be still with me here in 20 years from now, because I wouldn't be looking at it. So I guess I wouldn't call it being called out, but more like just being like helping us face like our debt, like that's this big monster,
It was definitely a lifestyle that we had to change. Yeah. And we had to really be cautious of how we spend and what we spend. From last year, January actually, last January until now, we had paid off a tremendous amount. I want to say like $10,000 worth
$10,000
of debt.
Yeah,
and
due to the program.
Due to the how we spend and how we've been managing our money, like moving it, shifting it. We also saved $12,000 since July.
Yeah.
It was a real big change for us.
Yeah, it was a big change, but it was worth it. It was tough in the beginning, but I wouldn't change it for anything. Yeah. Thank you guys.
Hawaii HomeOwnership Center hooked us up with some programs, or at least informed us about programs that we could qualify for and get some assistance with, closing costs, mortgage payment plans and whatnot.
And so our experience with the HomeOwnership Center was just unbelievable. It was really good.
If you want to do something, might as well do it right, so I'll just follow someone who does it right.
So we come back to that original question. So why is homeownership important to you? And again, it could be I'm tired of paying rent. I want to build a foundation for opportunities in the future. Maybe I want to be able to help my kids down the road. Or it might be Skippy needs more room to run.